This presentation is about the Participatory Action Method by Jay Ellis, Alex Hill, Michael Lichman, Burke Peterson, and Kendall Rodriguez.
Participatory Action Method, referred to as the PAR method, is a philosophy of research that focuses on participation and action from the community being studied, and is said to be done with people rather than on or for people. Throughout the design, implementation, and dissemination of a research study, the community is involved to help answer questions, identify research questions, and generate solutions based on the findings. The idea was that if researchers involved the communities in their studies, the people would be more invested and would help produce a better research product, and would also be involved in decision-making and attempts at solving particular social problems. Shown here are the steps of the PAR process. Step 1. Project design and implementation. First, the study is conceived based highly on a specific problem or issue that is trying to be changed or resolved within the community. This is done with the community's help. Step 2. Participant engagement. The next step is to determine who are the key stakeholders associated with the study, which of these people will be worked with, and to what extent will they be involved in the process. At this stage, the engagement level of the participants is decided. Step 3. Data collection. After feedback from the community, the questions and participants may need to be refined and changed at this stage. The decision is then made on how to collect the data and who will be performing this task. The participant group is assessed to see if a good sample size will be represented. Step 4. Data analysis. Analysis is then performed according to the desired output. This considers the geographic component of your data, such as cities and neighborhoods. If there are other interests in organizing change or advocacy, the data can be analyzed for that purpose as well. Step 5. Reporting. Once the analysis is complete, the information is then disseminated. With the proper analysis and reporting, the following action can have great impacts because of the buy-in from the community throughout the entire process.
When you use the participatory method, you are allowing ordinary people to somewhat play the role of the experimenter. This means that the data produced is from unheard voices that might not normally be reached by the conventional studies. It consists of local knowledge and diversity, and it comes from the experiences of the targeted community. And what it leads to is that the respect for local knowledge and experience is paramount, and the result is interventions that reflect local realities, often leading to better supported and longer-lasting social change.
Participatory action research has largely been used in social reform situations. In the first example, a community in rural Nepal used PAR to improve newborn survival rates. Groups met monthly to discuss issues affecting maternal and newborn health and completed a community action cycle of problem identification, planning, and participatory evaluation. In the second example, community-driven efforts to improve agriculture knowledge in China's poor southwestern region led to improved maize varieties and empowered women farmers. The country's top-down system of seed production was not being adopted by these farmers, so a researcher went to the region to work with them. She created a team of 6 local farmers, national seed breeders, and local proponents of the modernized seed production with a goal of improving the lives of local farmers and developing sustainable breeding techniques. One of the greatest successes of this participatory action research was a shift from China's institutional farming approach. Social media has changed the way customers interact with brands. This new line of communication opens up many opportunities for conducting PAR between customers and the company I work for. By allowing customers to participate in the research cycles of production development, we can gain valuable insights into our audience and work with them to create products they love. The communal processes of plan, act, observe, and reflect used in PAR work well with the lean startup method. The lean startup cycle requires you to build a solution, measure customer reaction, then learn and adjust. A strong community of loyal customers can act as research and development teams to perfect the products they care about, all while feeling like contributors instead of subjects in an experiment.
Some of the caveats and warnings to using the participatory method are that people's own assessment of their own condition can quickly become biased because of limited information and social conditioning. Also, when you are looking at very local communities, you can limit your sample size that you have. You also might not be sure of how representative or consistent the views are that you're collecting. It can also become difficult to expand the data to a larger group.
Hi, I'm Michael Lichman, and I will be addressing some of the ethical considerations related to participatory action research, or PAR as it is commonly referred to. PAR has some particularly challenging ethical issues because it doesn't fit neatly within the traditional methods of research that the universally acceptable guidelines for the ethical treatment of human subjects in research were built around and for. For traditional research, there are 4 overarching principles that guide ethical review boards and researchers. Each principle is said to be co-equal in importance and must be weighted equally when making a determination about whether or not a specific research project is being conducted in an ethical manner. The first of those 4 principles is respect for persons. Respect for persons is the idea that we treat others with respect for their autonomy and well-being. In research, adhering to this principle is generally thought to be facilitated by collecting informed consent from the research participants before they begin participation. Informed consent is basically laying out all of the processes and procedures the participants will be exposed to, as well as describing the associated risks and potential remediation of harms associated with the research. A problem arises in participatory action research because much of the questions, objectives, and direction of the research are derived from the community-based participants. Institutional review boards, who are third parties responsible for oversight and approval of human subjects research, find this dynamic particularly troubling because they are tasked with providing upfront approval of informed consent forms, research questions, methodologies, and such. It seems like their anxiety around the subject is warranted. How can you analyze and improve something that isn't necessarily knowable at the outset of the research? The answer is that you can't. So what then is the answer to the dilemma? Well, Carol Stewart in her article Care and Concern, An Ethical Journey in Participatory Action Research, published in 1998, suggests that the informed consent should be a continual process where researchers are constantly updating participants about the consequences and implications of the differing paths the research may take. In a more recent article, Literature Review, published in 2018 by Daniel Lake and Joel Wendland, we find that the problem still exists and there's no universally accepted solution for the dilemma. Their suggestion is similar, though, to Stewart's, but they suggest a continual discussion / risk assessment occur that involves all of the stakeholders, the IRBs included. The second overarching principle is non-malfeasance, basically means do no harm to others. The basic tenet is that researchers shouldn't expose people to an increased risk of physical, psychological, social, or even economic harm. Because PAR often involves marginalized or at-risk groups to begin with, that it's difficult to assess at the outset what their baseline risk profile actually looks like. It's also difficult to protect the anonymity of individuals participating in PAR. For instance, if you have a person with AIDS and you want to research the challenges they face in their daily life, it may be that the law requires their status to be disclosed to the Department of Health, who will then disseminate such information to relevant organizations in the community. That may result in some social, economic, and psychological harm to the individual. However, that harm may be subsequently mitigated by the outcome of your research, and the end result may be a much improved circumstance for those individuals. Balance really is the key. There's no calculus that can sort it out. It just comes down to consciously identifying the harms or potential for harm and doing all you can to mitigate it. Even if the harms are prospectively created and an anticipated result of your research, you have to seek to mitigate it. For the final 2 overarching principles, we have beneficence, which is the duty to advance the good of others, and justice, which is the idea that all people should be treated equitably. PAR actually serves to promote and facilitate those two principles for the very function of its purpose. Benefiting the individual participants is at the core of the research methodology, and underserved groups are frequently said to be engaged in such research. So really, at the end of the day, the tension we see in the other principles is not at issue in these two other overarching principles.